Whether you like it or not, it looks like UAVs could be coming to a city, a state, or a private company near you.
Anyone can own one of these, anyone can operate one of these.
These tiny flying robots are equipped to take photos and video. Just today, a tourist crashed one into a hot spring at Yellowstone National Park.
You can buy them online for several $100s, but right now there's a lot of gray area in terms of privacy.
And only on 7 News.
Turn on the news and you're seeing more and more stories about drones and the stunning images they capture in a new, dynamic way.
Imagine having a tripod that you can put anywhere you want, literally anywhere, inside, outside, next to people. This is really going to change how we view stuff.
We're not talking about military drones carrying weapons, but drones that look like remote control helicopters. And when you see what they can do, it's no wonder everyone from Amazon to police to filmmakers, even farmers are lining up to use them.
It's a revolution that we're experiencing right now, and being able to go out quickly and very conveniently fly.
Washington is at the epicenter of this booming drone industry. The top drone makers in our backyard.
We spend hundreds of millions of dollars every year in procuring parts from Washington State, and then inject, hundreds of millions of dollars a year in just salary alone.
Building, testing, and inventing brand new ways to utilize these aircraft. It's all happening right here.
Using collaborating robots together, whether they're air or ground, we see it's really going to be the future in most everything that's done.
But for every innovative use, there's also confusion. Where can they fly? Who can fly them? Then there's fear over spying, privacy, and what Big Brother government or your next door neighbor can and should be allowed to watch.
It's not just watch you like I can watch somebody across the park. It's watch you with a telescopic lens from a quarter mile away or a half a mile away. It's watching you in this way that there isn't necessarily a technological equivalent to that we just deal with in regular society.
It's a concern that's about to grow more intense. In 2015, the skies are fair game. The FAA will open up commercial airspace to drones. That means 30,000 drones likely buzzing around the country by the end of this decade.
That will happen. That will happen in the next few years, and it's coming.
The issue is at the center of a heated debate in Washington state. From protests to a governor's veto.
I'm very concerned about the effects of this new technology.
There's even a ban on state agencies using them.
Senate will be in order.
With Washington lawmakers poised to tackle the issue again, setting rules for who can use drones, when, and the reasons why, many are questioning the future of flight plans in Washington.
It really requires good coordination, fairly good eyesight, and nerves of steel. And I don't do so well on those 3 counts, but I'm stubborn.
If you've ever seen a drone buzzing the sky,
we consider a successful flight one that ends not in a crash.
There's a good chance it's flown by someone who's discovered a new hobby.
My name's Carl Franz, and I'm trying to be retired. Okay, we're gonna go up. I've been flying just over a year, and I got into it because my wife and I have a property with an amazingly beautiful wetland. When I flew over our wetland for the first time, 1,000 feet out and back, and found a beaver dam that's probably 100 years old, huge, never seen it before. That gave me a thrill that I still get when I fly.
This former travel writer,
I don't film wildlife because I don't like to harass them.
Now spends his time filming nature from the sky.
It's just quite an interesting and I think can potentially productive hobby, especially if you're fortunate to be able to do it the way I do it. I mean, gosh, how good can it get? I've got the hobby. My wife doesn't yell at me for spending the money, and
it's a hobby that's as expensive as you make it.
You can buy now the first generation Phantoms are going for as little as $400. The beautiful red waterproof Ladybug, those retail ready to fly for over $3,000. If you want to get a little crazy as a hobbyist, there's no limit to what you can spend.
They can't have something more intimidating.
This Phantom drone, the most popular model in the hobby market.
This is the gimbal system, so this is basically just to keep stuff steady.
And a favorite of Bellingham videographer and student Max Romy.
All right. All right, yeah, it looks like it's working. As a videographer, I'm interested in showing people a story through my eyes, and my eyes are my camera. Oh, that's very sweet. So to have something like this just opens up a world of possibilities. I primarily focus on running videos. You know, as a runner, that's my passion, and that's what I like to show. And having access to something like this just changes it. As long as you don't hit people, you can follow people, you know, 2 feet behind their back and then shoot up 500 feet. So it's really a dream come true for a videographer.
We might record the first
Mid-air crash.
Mid-air collision.
Yeah. Max and Carl are part of Washington's growing hobbyist community, building and flying drones for fun, often in parks like this, where there's less to crash into.
The first time I flew it here, I was 100 feet in the air up there when I realized, wonder what's happening with the battery. It dropped straight down and hit the ground, and yeah, broke the landing gear. So that's why I did a hillbilly fix, because this landing gear is quite expensive.
They fly under the Federal Aviation Administration's model aircraft rules, frequently referred to as the FAA hobby rules.
Another perfect landing.
Drones must fly under 400 feet, 5 miles away from airports, stay within line of sight, weigh less than 55 pounds, and cannot fly for commercial purposes. Olympic National Park recently joined a long list of national parks banning drones. The FAA says big, congested cities like Manhattan are also off limits because of airspace restrictions. But otherwise, the sky is the limit in most places, under 400 feet at least.
As a hobbyist, I could fly this anywhere I want, and the FAA is not going to do anything to me. There's no like FAA police out there. But I would say that it's the people that are flying these that really are policing it. You know, I'm keeping others who are flying these in check, and others are keeping me flying it in check because they don't want anybody in the community to ruin it for the rest of them. It's a really cool hobby, a lot of possibility, but a couple mistakes could really bring down the hammer on everybody.
When I come here and there are people, I go way over to the other side and I keep a very low profile. I don't fly over people or near them. And there's a lot of controversy about that. I'm concerned, like a lot of the hobbyists, about the perception of these things as a great invaders of privacy. I would no more try to invade somebody's privacy with this than I would shoot a shotgun off in their backyard or whatever. But there are some irresponsible people flying them. There's no doubt about it. So we're going to run into more negative reports, and I just hope that those negative reports don't overshadow the positive uses of these things.
And I saw it, and I stopped and paused and was like, what the heck is that? Because I'm not used to seeing something like that out there.
An eerie sight outside a Seattle apartment building.
One of the most widely publicized reports happened in Seattle, where a woman told Como News she spotted a drone outside her 26-story apartment window. Turns out it was a Portland company taking photos to show the view for a new 20-story building. People have mixed reactions to seeing hobby drones in the sky, as TVW discovered when flying at a public park.
I think at first I say, wow, that's kind of cool. And then I say, are they taking pictures of me?
Is this for like Amazon? Are they going to deliver packages with these kind of things?
Yeah, it kind of freaked me out when I was sitting over there looking at it. I was like, what is that thing over there? It's not a helicopter, is it?
What's he going to do with the video? You know, because if you take somebody's pictures, usually you ask them or, you know, you get somebody's permission. Right. So what is he videotaping?
I guess we're just used to it.
Yeah, I think
it'd be fun. It'd be like Instagram selfie with my drone.
With consent of the House, we'll advance to the 7th order of business. Hearing no objections, so ordered.
Here at Washington State Capitol in Olympia, there have been attempts to put more rules on hobbyists.
How much streets can we go?
Spearheaded by Democratic State Representative Jeff Morris.
Well, I'm having battery issues, so
I bought one of these drones just to experiment what we were trying to regulate, and my second experience I lost control of it and was lucky I didn't hurt somebody, and I immediately thought, oh gosh, what kind of insurance should I have before I started to fly this?
Representative Morris introduced a bill that would have shielded private property from the eyes of drones.
The bill we looked at, if you're flying an unmanned aerial vehicle in a park like we're in here today, that's okay to do. You can record it, record what's going on if you want. Even though some people felt uncomfortable about that, it's a public space. What we said though is if you're over private property, you don't have the right to record people's private property without their permission. You know, that's going to stop the kind of voyeurism with drones potentially of, in the case of the Seattle incident, hovering outside a 26th story apartment building. You have a certain sense of privacy that would have been illegal, it would have been a new crime.
The bill passed overwhelmingly out of the House,
Senate will be in order.
but died in the Senate and never became law. Morris still thinks the potential for abuse is huge.
Definitely all the abusive things that people will feel their privacy was violated is going to happen in that hobbyist space.
He says people have an expectation to privacy in their own homes.
My building, we have skylights all over the place. I don't put curtains on my skylights. If there was a helicopter over your house, you would know that it was there. I found with the Amazon Phantom drone that I bought to experiment with, that I don't, some of them are really loud, some of them are not so loud. If you're more than 20 yards away, you're not going to hear it in an environment with lots of other ambient background noise.
In the same way that you can abuse a lot of other things to spy on people's privacy, you can abuse these.
Hobbyists argue that laws should focus on the people who are spying, not the drone itself.
That's not what I'm interested in. I think the majority of people are not interested in that, especially because it wouldn't work very well. You have to be very distracted not to see these. They sound like a lawnmower. They are not small. They're bright white so that I can see them. They're not exactly a spy plane. I mean, they're big.
The Eagle Tree looks like it could be happier. I'm getting a graphics error, but all the instrumentation looks good.
Amid this spying debate, some hobbyists are trying to educate the public and lawmakers about how drones could be used for good.
Bingo, we're up. We got 6 satellites, 1.4. I'm Patrick Sherman.
I'm Brian Zwijsna.
And together we are the Roswell Flight Test Crew. We're hobbyists who build and fly multi-rotor aircraft with the primary goal of sort of showing their potential benefits to society. Our areas of particular interest are helping first responders and scientific research.
Let's go.
The duo gained fame on the internet for these catchy videos, something that began when they started flying demonstrations for Washington firefighters 3 years ago.
Longview is actually, it's kind of has a special place in our hearts because it was the very first public safety we ever did.
You can put that thing in the air and see something that no one else can see. With a FLIR imager, you can see right through the smoke. Or you could see where the guys are on the roof to see, hey, there's a hot spot there, don't go over there. And they can tell that ahead of time, in real time, so the incident commander can say it's unsafe to go here, or it's safe to go there, or go now, whatever. So it's information they don't normally have.
And they said, go to town, film whatever else you want. So we made our first video there, which was basically just a burn to learn, an old apartment complex that had been decommissioned, just being burned to the
pretty big
ground.
one too.
Yeah. So that kind of lit off the flare and got us attention on the internet. That's where we started to get our reputation as, oh, the drone guys who do the fire stuff.
They say privacy is not an issue when flying with firefighters.
If your house is on fire, you're less concerned if somebody happens to videotape you than that the firefighters help you, put that out.
But when flying for fun,
hey guys, you want to see what it sees?
Using first-person goggles to see what the drone sees, they almost always draw a crowd.
We have people that walk by and go, oh, you could be spying on us. And we throw them the goggles and go, look, you really can't see detail at this kind of distance. It's more like for the fun of it. If you're up in a jetliner, you can't see what's going on the ground. With the wide angle view that we have on the cameras, you really can't see a lot of detail. Unless you're on top of the person, then of course you're right there and they can tell you're there.
As for rules for hobbyists,
regulate behavior, not technology. To my mind, if I'm violating someone's personal privacy, it doesn't matter whether I do that with a camera with a long lens or with a camera on the end of a stick or with a multi-rotor aircraft. I'm violating the person's privacy, and that's the behavior which should be punished.
They say rulemaking is best left to the Federal Aviation Administration, which is developing rules for small drones by the end of 2014.
We don't want a patchwork of rules in different states, because we live in Oregon, but we travel to Washington very frequently and fly there, and I'd hate to end up memorizing one set of rules for Oregon, another set for Washington, a third one when we go to California. I mean, I think and I hope that most of the people doing this are sensible and show good judgment, and hopefully that's enough. But I would like somebody to have some teeth to smack those people who do get out of line.
As companies in the gorge prepare for the commercial market, some professionals worry the perception and fear of drones, along with restrictive state laws, could hurt their industry.
The fear about drones is really a misguided conversation. I think if we were really talking about the right thing, we'd be talking about the loss of our privacy.
Nancy White is the CEO of another gorge company, Custom Interface.
Obviously, there's good in protecting the public from the dangers of terrorists and this kind of thing, but the American public has a hard time understanding why their particular email is being gathered along with everyone else's in the country. You know, whether we're on our phones or using email, I think the American public has really become super sensitive to having this invasion, and so now, you know, the UAS systems has become that next thing that we all fear. But if we were really having the right conversation, it'd be about how do we protect our privacy.
Rotors are engaged.
While this drone may look and sound like those flown for fun, there's one important difference. This one belongs to police.
The zoom is actually all the way in right there, and it gets us a good situational awareness, but we're not reading VINs or license plates or anything with this.
The Seattle Police Department in 2012 became one of the first public agencies to acquire a drone, the Dragonflyer X6. As officers showed King 5 News, the drone is not armed and comes with 3 different cameras to watch crime scenes. But when the Seattle police attempted to hold community meetings to explain how they would use the drone,
Not much to it, huh?
the meeting was shut down by angry protesters who drowned out Assistant Chief Paul McDonough.
All I'm trying to do is have a respectful conversation.
Shouting about a loss of privacy and fears of police abuse.
Of course, this is going to be seen as a threat because you're already having a lot of killings and violence within the community.
Most people know drones to be objects of war that kill people abroad. So that's obviously going to ruffle a few feathers when local police departments want to start getting them as well.
Among those who oppose Seattle's drone program is Matthew Killigrew, a legal fellow with the Bill of Rights Defense Committee.
I think that people were upset not just because of their experience, you know, their field of reference for drones being really dangerous and potentially lethal on the one hand, but for two, out of just the deep creep factor of this idea that there is a drone that can watch you at any time.
He says drones in the hands of government pose a threat to civil liberties.
It becomes the most pronounced problem when the police do it, because at the end of the day, a hobbyist can take a picture and you may not like the fact that they take a picture and you can have a genuine fight about that, but all you're going to have is a fight. The police do it, they can throw you in prison.
Seattle's drone program also drew criticism from the American Civil Liberties Union, which says police never explained what they would do with the pictures collected.
In that situation, you know, we engaged with the Seattle police. You know, we wanted to get a clearer picture of what they wanted to use the drones for. They didn't really have that picture, and as it turned out, you know, the public outcry was strong enough that the mayor eventually ended up pulling the plug on the program. And now the drones have been actually shipped down to the LAPD for their use. So I think that's a very good cautionary tale of how not to acquire drones.
Seattle police declined an interview with TVW, saying, quote, "The department no longer has UAVs and will not be using them lest there are changes in law and or public sentiment." Much of the public's perception of drones is undeniably tied to war. In the last 5 years, drone strikes have killed more than 2,000 people abroad. Unmanned aerial vehicles came about during World War I. The Kettering bug was the first. Propellers and a motor were attached to a warhead carrying 200 pounds of explosives. A short track served as a runway. After a rocky start, it finally took flight, delivering the bomb by cutting the engine and diving to Earth. Lessons learned from the Kettering bug helped design more advanced unmanned aerial systems, including spy drones such as this Cold War-era D-21B on display at Seattle's Museum of Flight. Today's military drones are smaller, faster, smarter, and come both armed and unarmed.
The public perception is they're bad, and they're bad because they kill people. And that's the military application. And we look at that and we go, yeah, they do kill people, but it's the bad guys. We're saving our soldiers' lives. My son's a corporal in the Marines. I want every absolute technology available to save his life. But we want to take that technology and use it for positive purposes.
Eric Folkstedt is the president of the Cascade chapter of the Association for Unmanned Vehicle Systems International, the leading trade group for the industry. He says police departments would benefit from the technology.
Law enforcement is a very risky job. Fighting crime is dangerous. And if there's a way that we can provide protection for our law enforcement officers, who hundreds get killed every year needlessly, and if we can provide some form or some tool to help them get a different perspective on the situation. If you've got a crime scene or you've got an active hostage situation where you need eyes in the sky, it's perfect for that. And we can save lives doing that. We know we can, and we have a bunch of engineers and scientists that are willing to provide this technology to law enforcement.
The barriers to effective policing are not technological. Why do we need bigger, burlier, more advanced, more terrifying, less accountable police technologies when it really seems like the problems with policing are in oversight? It's in policy decisions.
The myth is that left-leaning organizations are the ones that, or people, are the ones that may have concerns, but the reality really is that Tea Party groups and many more groups have very strong concerns about this sort of technology.
The Washington chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations worries police will use drones to track local Muslims.
We have a number of people who are being, who complain of being held at the border, at other places, and they have clean records. They're U.S. citizens. They're wondering why they're being flagged. They also wonder if their activities, they're active in interfaith, they're active in their mosques, whether their activities are being tracked, and that is rendering them on these lists. And that's why the concern came again to drones. As we know, they can be as small as a deck of cards. They can be parked on a windowsill or maybe on an electric wire. And so that was a concern. When will these be used? How much suspicion must there be for these to be used? And many more questions like that.
It's that invasion of privacy tied with the power and authority to apprehend someone and take them for questioning and have your life fall down. That's really the problem.
What we don't want is for law enforcement to take that technology and go beyond the privacy limits. That's something where we need the legislature to define what is the limit for that technology.
The speaker is about to open the roll call machine. The speaker has opened.
Washington's legislature agreed that police need restrictions when it comes to drones. And in 2014, it passed a bill by Republican Representative David Taylor requiring search warrants to use them.
Essentially, it was a blanket prohibition. It said, government, you can't use drones unless. Do I want the Yakima County Sheriff deploying a drone because they have a description of a vehicle of somebody who had just abducted a kid? Yeah. Absolutely, that was built into the bill. Do I want, or do I think the public wants a drone flying up and down every single road looking for speeding violations? No. They want the government to save money, work efficiently and effectively, and maintain their privacy while doing that.
The bill also allowed state agencies to use drones in certain situations, like fighting fires and responding to natural disasters.
Things that generally, quite frankly, number one, would save lives, but number two, could save the state money.
Good morning.
But before the law could take effect, Governor Jay Inslee rejected the bill.
Today I'm vetoing this particular bill. I'm also imposing, until we get another crack at getting this right in the next legislative session, I am imposing a moratorium for all executive branch state agencies on the purchase or use of unmanned aircraft systems for the next 15 months.
The governor says it was conflicting and ambiguous, but some lawmakers disagree and say they're prepared to go so far as to hold a vote to override the governor's veto, something that hasn't happened in 25 years.
I'm really excited to work on this committee because I think we have a unusual, if not unique, opportunity to really write the best legislation on this issue in the nation.
For now, state drones remain grounded, and a task force is meeting to come up with a framework for a new law.
Unfortunately now, we're faced with Instead of having at least a placeholder with the bill being, had it been signed into law, we start over essentially.
It's also created some confusion among state agencies, says TVW discovered when it asked to shoot video with a drone at the state capitol during off hours when no people were around. TVW is not a state agency, and the capitol is public property where anyone is free to film. But still, the answer was no. The State Department of Enterprise Services responded by saying filming the campus may violate the privacy of tenants and visitors, pose an unnecessary public safety risk, and disrupt normal conduct of state business. So instead, TVW obtained permission to shoot this footage at a nearby private property.
It really does go to this question of what kind of a society do we want to live in.
Washington state is on the verge of passing its own law, but questions remain.
We don't want to live in a society, I think most Washingtonians don't want to live in a society where government drones are flying all over the place and they're collecting information and nobody really knows how that information is being used.
If you're going to do surveillance on a private individual, you need a warrant. You need a search warrant to do that. We agree with that. But we also do not want to ban the technology where it helps people. So if we can use these systems to help find a lost hiker or someone who is severely injured up in the mountains or firefighting and all these other things that we talked about, we should be allowed to do that for the public good.
The forest that lies behind all of these trees is the fact that this is war technology. Like, drones are wartime technology, and there's a direct parallel between the drawdowns in Iraq and Afghanistan and the militarization of police at home. It's not limited to different drones. It's not limited to drones. It's limited to all different types of weaponry. It's limited to body armor, military vehicles, spying equipment that isn't aerially launched. There's a lot of conversation that people need these technologies in order to effectively police, and that is a marketing ploy.
What we want to make sure happens is that there is a respectful dialogue around the fact that you can use any kind of technology to invade someone's privacy. It doesn't have to be an unmanned aircraft. It could be a helicopter. A news helicopter can do a lot more than what an unmanned aircraft can do.
It's perfectly legal for anybody who wants to, either law enforcement, a regulatory agency, or a private citizen, to fly over your house at 500 feet and take pictures of you. And I think everybody generally feels that's probably okay. But on the other hand, if somebody wants to fly a small drone, a small quadcopter, 20 feet over your backyard and take pictures of you in your backyard, or fly it up to your bedroom window and peek in your bedroom window, I think everybody acknowledges that that's not okay. So we're in this place where we need the laws to catch up and to figure out where the boundary is.
The message I would give to somebody who's concerned about privacy is, first, if you're in Seattle, go up the Space Needle and try to see everything that's happening in the city below you. Obviously you can't. Now try to put a camera up to that eye and learn how difficult it is to go and spy on people. There's no need for specific legislation pertaining to unmanned aircraft, simply because unmanned aircraft don't offer any unique ability to investigate.
Legislators in Washington state aren't going to be as put off by the fact that something has a national controversy attached to it. Washington has taken a pretty provocative stand on individual civil liberties and individual civil rights before. I mean, death with dignity, marriage equality, marijuana legalization. You know, the Washingtonians are not afraid to go first.
And to make it happen, lawmakers will be weighing privacy alongside the promise of a new technology, all part of charting a course for drones in Washington.